What's going on, y'all? Chuck Nunface here, and today we are going to talk about this guy right here. This is the Emerson EX-100. New design, fairly new design, been out for a couple of models from Emerson. And as you can see right there, it has got a beautiful clip point or Bowie blade. It is not Bowie, I will tell you that right now. David Bowie, Jim Bowie. The Bowie blade was designed by, made famous by Jim Bowie, the clip point. It was named after him, his big old Bowie knife. So that's just a little bit of semi-accurate history right there. In any case, let's get into the specs of this knife. This is, like I say, a new offering from Emerson. They've only done one run of it so far. I would imagine they're going to do more based on the popularity of this knife. It's a bit of a departure from, typical black G10. This one is obviously gray. We'll go over some of the specs real quick right here. It has got a 3.5-inch blade, as you can see right here. 1, 2, 3, and 1/2 with about a 3.25-inch cutting edge and that nice grind right there and that nice clip point style. It does have gray G10 on the handles with stainless steel lock inserts. Well, this one's stainless and this the lock side is titanium. And overall length on this one is going to be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 inches long overall. And it's going to weigh in at about 4.5 ounces. So not too heavy on this one at all. We'll go ahead and do a couple of size comparisons here. As always, we'll go ahead and compare it with the Spyderco Stretch 2. And this one is very similar to a PM2, so that's why I like to use that. And there is a Spyderco Native 5, so it's going to be about the same size as the Stretch 2. It's going to be a little bit better than the Native 5 right there. Let's see what else we want to do here. We'll do the Ontario Rat number 1. A little bit smaller than the Rat 1, but pretty much the same size as the Rat 1. Nothing too much of a departure there. We'll go ahead, as always, and do the large Chris Reeve Sebenza 21. It's gonna be a little bit shorter than the Sebenza 21, a little bit less blade on that one, but similar size. It's you're kind of getting the idea. It's in that same basic size as the Sebenza 21. We'll go ahead and do another Emerson right there. That is the A100. So we have the EX-100 and the A100. This one's sporting some micarta scales from the factory. I did do a little bit of a hardware swap on that. So I put some black hardware in instead of the stainless hardware. And of course, it also has a deep carry clip, but as you say, this is essentially a standard offering from Emerson. So it's gonna be a little bit smaller than the A100, but not insanely smaller. Keeping with the Emerson theme, this is not an Emerson knife, but it's an Emerson design, the ZT0630. So this is based on the CQC8 model. And it's gonna be a little bit smaller than the ZT, as you can see. This one also has a regrind by BGM Knives. I might do a feature on this one at some point. And lastly, we'll round it out with the Hinderer XM18. Pretty standard. Everybody kind of knows what these knives right here kind of look like. That's what I always want to do when I do my size comparisons. I always want to make sure it's something that isn't kind of wild and out there that people aren't familiar with. I want to do kind of more common knives than these really exotic customs or less common knives or anything like that. So yeah, so a little bit of backstory on this knife right here, the EX-100. It was a knife, according to the Emerson Knives website. Ernest kind of had this knife in his head. The idea for this knife in his head for a long time, many years, but he never really got around to making it. And they finally ended up producing it this year. So it's a really simple design. I mean, it's just, for me, it's basically, it's going to be a CQC7, which unfortunately I don't have in order to do the comparison, but it's going to be a CQC7, but with that Bowie, that clip point blade. So looking at the blade right there too, it's going to have those great EKI grinds that they do. It is, as always, going to be, well, not as always, but it's only going to be the secondary bevel, the edge is only put on one side, and it's ground, so not a saber grind, but a chisel grind. That's the term I'm looking for. So it's got a somewhat of a chisel grind, kind of a false chisel grind. So this is what they call V ground. So they do have their full chisels where it's all going to be completely flat and unground on one side. And then the other side is gonna have the primary bevel and the secondary bevel, but this one is V ground. So it's gonna be ground on both sides, but the final edge is only gonna be put on one side right there. And they always leave those nice grind lines. I love their grind lines. You know, when grind lines are done right, they look really good on a knife. I really dig them right there. And it's gonna have that disc opener. This is the stock disc. Oftentimes, you know, I'll change out my disc. I'll put a different disc on there, either from Great Precision, or this one's actually from Emerson themselves, that 45 Auto. But I just decided with this knife, you know, all of them benefit from having an increased, like a monster disc or something like that. I think they all benefit from it, but it's not necessary on all the models. You know, some I think really need it, and others don't. But this one, there's not really a hard time accessing the thumb disc on this one, so no problems there. It does have that new style domed pivot as well, which is kind of the trend that they're going towards. Instead of that flat pivot, they got that dome pivot right there. So just kind of a minor thing, nothing major. And then it's gonna have that typical Emerson hardware where it's just gonna be a flat head. They're not doing torque screws or anything like that. Flat head, and then, you know, Phillips head right there on all the body screws. It is going to come on Nylotron washers, which is standard for all Emersons, and it's also going to be blade steel. It's going to be 154 cm. 154 cm, take it, leave it, love it, hate it. It kind of is what it is. It's just the steel that they run for the reasons that they do it. I'm not going to get into all that. You know, would I prefer them to use something different? You know, even S35 yen, S45 yen, something like that. Yeah, I would, but they use 154 cm. It runs at about 57 to 59 Rockwell. Not crazy hard, pretty easy to resharpen, but it is not, for what we're looking for generally in the knife community, it's not gonna be running, you know, as hard as we would want. You know, we're kind of spoiled now where a lot of knife makers, it's becoming more of the norm to have steel heat treated to higher hardnesses, but they have their reasons for doing it. They want it to be easily field serviceable and sharpened and everything else, so that's the reason they do that. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I've used this knife quite a bit since getting it. In fact, I'm kind of surprised I haven't done a video on this knife yet. I've had it for a couple of months now, but I haven't done a video of it. But I've been carrying it quite a bit, and I really, if you follow me on Instagram at Chuck_Nunface, you will have seen several posts and me praising this knife quite a bit. Another thing is I'm not big on front flippers, but this is one knife that you can definitely have it be it's not by design, but you can definitely use it as a front flipper. I think I can do it with the A100. I'm not the best at front flipping knives, but you can kind of do it with a couple of their models, and the EX-100, you know, that's just another, you have your thumb opening, you have your, I'm not great at sparty flicking, thumb stud and thumb disc knives. I mean, you can definitely do it. You can do it, I'm not gonna embarrass myself on camera anymore, but you can definitely do it that way, and you can also do the kind of front flip with the thumb. This does have, I should note, this is a aftermarket deep carry clip. The stock clip doesn't carry too badly on it. You're gonna get to have about that much knife sticking out of your pocket right there with the stock clip, but not too bad. But I did have an extra deep carry clip from Emerson, and so I decided to go ahead and put it on. It's a decent clip. You can get these directly from them, and you know, it's not bad. That is a little pointy right there, but it's pointed down, so it's really not that big a deal. So you know, I certainly don't mind it at all. In any case, I'm trying to think of what else I can say about this. Emerson will often make super versions, or they'll make mini versions and they'll make super versions, so smaller versions of their standard offerings, and then larger versions of their standard offerings as well. For instance, the A100 has both an A100 Super and they have an A100 Mini. The CQC7 has a standard. I believe there is a CQC7 Mini, and there's also a CQC7 Super. The Commander has a Super Commander, a Standard, and then a Mini Commander, and actually a Micro Commander. If this one right here came out with a Super, I don't know if I'd ever need to buy another knife, so maybe they shouldn't come out with it. This knife, for me, I do like bigger knives, and I really like buoys, and I think if this knife as is fantastic. This is gonna work for an EDC for most normal people, but I like knives a little bit bigger, and I would love this knife right here. This exact configuration, these ergos, everything like that. And of course, you know, when you supersize it, you are gonna get a little bit of a different ergonomic feel to it. But I mean, I would love to see this knife right here in a super configuration. You know, you add about another 1/2 inch of blade, maybe 3/4 of an inch of blade. You're gonna get a bigger handle. It's just gonna be bigger. It's gonna be taller. It's just gonna be awesome. So I really hope Emerson offers this in a super version. That would be just killer, super EX-100. Pardon me, it's allergies time around here in Texas, and I'm just kind of having to clear my throat quite a bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap it up with that. I'm a big fan of this knife. I recommend this knife. If you wanna sign up for email alerts on Emerson's website, so if they do another drop, I imagine at some point they're gonna do another run of these. I definitely recommend picking one of these up and either keeping it as is or sending it off to one of the many knife modifiers, get different scales made for it, or you can do a full po' boy on it or something like that. There's plenty of guys out there that are doing stuff like that. I think this knife would be a great candidate for, you know, a po' boy mod or something, or some different scales. You know, definitely something like that too. But as it is in its stock configuration, you know, it's fantastic too. I mean, this is basically stock. It does have the aftermarket clip, but you know, I haven't put a bigger disc on there or change the scales or done anything like that. And it's running just perfect, perfectly smooth. Lockup's great. No lock stick whatsoever. That's kind of been an issue with Emerson's over the years. You know, you get some lock stick on these, and you know, the double detent models that were older from, you know, pre-2015, before they started phasing it out, kind of funky actions on some of them, a little quirky, kind of had to tune them a little bit the way you wanted it to be. Everything that's been coming out of their shop over the last few years has just been lights out, perfect, what EDC people, what knife people would expect. There's no real surprises out of these. Does that mean everything's gonna be perfect? No, you're gonna get your occasional lemon, but by and large, everything coming out of EKI nowadays has been issue-free, at least in my experience. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Go ahead and give me a follow on Instagram if you haven't done so already, at Chuck_Nunface. Go ahead and click subscribe in the corner if you haven't done so already. It would be a huge help to me if you would do something like that. Just one click for you would help me out quite a bit. Turn on those alerts. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this knife or any other Emerson knife, or just anything in particular regarding knives. Love to hear from you. I always try to get back to comments as they roll in and as I see them. In any case, that is going to do it for me. Thank you for checking it out, y'all. Y'all stay safe.